trained by my communications officer to try and always use less technical language. So I'm trying to put forward into the simplest way I can.
You'd be helping us really to understand.
Yes. So basically, it's the computers or trying to think as we think. But how do they do that? It's by trying to learn our patterns of how we behave. And therefore, why it is mainly digital driven is because its learning is based on the digital data or the digital artifacts it gets from us by looking at or by observing the data and seeing, understanding the patterns behind that data. And that's when it starts to think as we think. That's why it is artificial intelligence. We are naturally intelligent as humans and try to explain AI in a layman's term.
Okay, interesting. I will come to Dr. Patrick, especially in your understanding of AI as the university, as an institution of research, and also looking at agriculture as the backbone of this country's economy. How is this, especially new technologies? And when we talk about new technologies, we cannot forget about AI.
Yeah, thank you once again. I'm Patrick Musinguzi from the College of Agricultural and Environmental Sciences, Makerere University. Greetings from the college to you all viewers and listeners. Basically, thank you, moderator, for the question. For sure, artificial intelligence.
Maybe if I may request, before you come to artificial intelligence, you could also explain to us and to the listener being part of us on the other side of radio what your department does.
Yeah.
Maybe you could interest someone to join you.
Yes, I come from the Department of Soil Science and Land Use Management. And in that department, actually, we are doing a lot of work in terms of supporting the nation in capacity building of future scientists of soils and agronomy and land management. So presently, we do a lot of laboratory support in testing soils, testing water and plant tissues. And also, of course, we train students and do research and engage a lot of community outreach in sharing some of these technologies in use of soil technologies, water technologies. So we do a lot of outreach as a department. So yes, if you need to reach out to the university, sure, you can be supported with those services. And back, of course, to the big question on the artificial intelligence. Yes, this is a very good emerging technology that we are all witnessing in these times and season. As a university, actually, we have taken it up very seriously because this intelligence, the artificial intelligence, the system which is trying to bring a human kind of setting into kind of artificial intelligence, it's something good for us, especially us who are doing research. We are embracing it in a way that how do we actually use the machines, the computers, to simulate human learning and also simulate problem solving, decision making. So it's something that we have fully embraced as a university because it seems it is the trend, it is the emerging technology, and we are looking forward to embrace it in agriculture as well. I will give you more highlights on how actually we can deploy it in different fields, but for sure with the emerging challenges of human population, with the land intensification, with the growing need for use of these resources optimally, there is need for this technology that can actually optimize the resources, optimize the use of inputs, optimize different things. And this AI is a very good technology that can actually provide us that support on how we can respond to the emerging challenges of the population, of intensification, of degradation. So it's a welcome technology, especially in universities, in research, and of course, I think in the communities.
Okay, interesting. About you, the hope of the nation, especially when it comes to governance, when we talk about governance in this country, when we talk about service delivery, when we talk about anything that we would expect from government, they do their best to provide. But people of this country say that even those achievements that we are realizing as a country, that we have achieved as a country, there is one bad element that waters down these achievements, and this is corruption. And one wonders how best can we leverage on these new technologies to combat, to attack, to fight this vice. Maybe for people to know what ACU is about.
Yeah, thank you very much, Aman. Once again, glad to be here. Anti-Corruption Coalition Uganda is a non-government organization, and we are an advocacy organization providing a platform to citizens who are passionate about fighting corruption. And in terms of what we do public education and sensitization, quite a lot about that. We do research on and provide alternatives to policy. We build capacity of non-state actors. We work with young people, creating a corruption-free generation amongst the young people, and several other things, and plus working with other like-minded actors like ours to provide a platform for dialogue against corruption. Going to AI, of course, it is a relative. It is not relative, new. I think it has been here for some time, but I think it is taking place right now. But very welcome in the sphere where we are. And I must say that even where we are not seated idle. We have been part of several projects that are aimed at incorporating AI in the kind of work that we do. One of that, of course, has been developing chatbots for analyzing large data sets. And one of the innovations that we are working at is developing a chatbot that, for instance, can easily summarize, can easily analyze reports that are quite heavy, like reports of the Office of the Auditor General. That is being worked on, and in most cases they say that the devil is in the details. So if you have AI and can help analyze and identify issues that highlight a few red spots that are likely to cause corruption, that is highly welcome. And we have seen that there are documents that are quite huge, like budgets that you cannot easily analyze, and AI tools can help you to do that. So basically, the first element we are looking at analyzing these documents, especially public documents. We have had instances in Uganda where people tell you, I signed the document without reading it because maybe it is 1,000 pages. That has happened before, and it is true. You look at the report, or maybe bills of quantities, or maybe a contract that is 2,500 pages. And usually the details are interesting and not good for the country. So we have tools like this that can analyze and provide summaries, like I said, are being worked on. I think they're quite important. Another thing, of course, with AI is to be able to do simulation and inferences and a few predictions here and there. I know, of course, we haven't reached there, but also I've had interactions broadly across the borders in terms of what is being done, and I can assure that is being done in terms of making predictions here and there, in terms of telling where likely corruption is going to be, in terms of conducting what we call corruption risk assessments, of course, based on what has happened, and then being able to make some predictions in terms of the future. Of course, the other element is that when you look at corruption, so it mostly thrives where there is a human interaction quite a lot, and where we have had a bit of digitalization, corruption has reduced, I think, from what has been coming up, where government services have been digitalized, there is less corruption. I mean, business registration, look at passport and driving permit. So having bots will not ask for bribes. Having chatbots, they will not ask for bribes. So I think also having these computer programs that can do the work that is done by human beings, and they can do the work efficiently, and without engaging in any form of corruption. I think that is also helpful. And of course, we are not yet moving at a pace, I mean, like other countries in the West or in Europe or in America. But I know, of course, eventually we shall also reach there as well. But of course, the other element is that in some other countries that actually they're developing programs that can actually assess a person who is likely to be corrupt by maybe asking a few questions and then looking at your profile online. Interesting that there is a lot of information about us that is online. Today when I was coming, I went on Chat GPT, and I just said, I just put a simple that I would take like an entire week to write. So it's very interesting that sometimes you have a lot of information online there that sometimes you don't use, and when you have these programs, they can help even in things like recruitment. You're recruiting somebody, and you want to know what is out there. And simple programs can give you each and everything that is available on the person that can be helpful. Of course, some of it good, some of it not so good, but that is where we are. And of course, last on that is the whole issue of bureaucracies and unnecessary delays. We have so many processes that delay, even here in Uganda, that AI programs would help. You apply like for a land title, and you spend 3-4 years waiting for one. It never comes out. Personally, I have been a victim to that. The same as several other areas where we find a lot of delays. So when we have these programs replace, especially for the kind of routine and manual work, you go to a ministry, you're looking for a record, then you have to go and search heaps and heaps and heaps and heaps of files. I mean, so those kinds of bureaucracies sometimes they're quite frustrating. So if you can have programs that can really replace human beings, then that would be fine in terms of improving efficiency.
Okay, interesting. Thank you so very much. At least we see some free colors of hope, especially when we talk about the future of Uganda. According to your statements, especially from your respective sectors and also institutions that you represent here on this program, and we're looking at some of the countries that have really embraced these new technologies, especially when we talk about AI. We see that India is really fast growing, especially when we talk about their development, as they have 74% of enterprise have implemented AI, looking at 67% investing in research and development, and also 55 focusing on work for scaling. United States, we're talking about 25 in business increasing, integrating AI to enhance operations. China 50, especially in enterprise, and United Kingdom 70, 37. But when we talk about East Africa, you'd be wondering what is really not happening. Why is Africa not adopting these new technologies? Why do we need really to be left behind, especially when we have platforms that we can embrace and be able to realize development quickly? Because when this new technology, because of the global governance, we have all these, especially when it is introduced, it is not only just for US or China or elsewhere, but also we have the same access as they do. Maybe they could be having more machines, or but like ChatGPT that Mario you're talking about, we can all access it on our phones. And this comes to you, Amos, especially when we look at government services, when we talk about service delivery, and also from a ministry that you represent and you work with. We're looking at Uganda's National Development Plan 3, which emphasizes digital transformation as the key enabler. And one wonders what specific steps that this government taking, and maybe through your ministry, to integrate this AI or these new technologies into national development frameworks, and how can the rule or these places or hard-rich areas that most people call underserved communities can be included, especially in the roadmap, in this very roadmap that we're talking about. Amos.
Thank you very much, Amon. Now, I think I need, for purposes of context, I need to start from, we have something in IT we call in service delivery, you start from where you are. And I think I need to first start from that perspective. You've given this background of the different countries that have actually adopted these technologies. We need to, first of all, recognize the fact that Africa in general, when you look at the technology adoption curve, we are usually the followers. We are never the innovators or the first followers. We usually come in the third quadrant or the fourth quadrant.
As beneficiaries.
Yes. Now, that is one, one is that most of these technologies are not developed for our context. So if you just bring it as it is, then you're going to err. And that's where those are some of the mistakes we've been making as African countries, where we find that these technologies do not actually benefit us the same way they benefit the different countries that actually come up with these technologies. Two, in this context of AI, we must realize that this is something that is highly digitally driven. All the 4IR technologies, the fourth industrial revolution technologies, are highly digitally driven. But we are a continent that is still digitizing. Okay. I'll bring it back into context. As Maron mentioned, AI has been around for some time. It is just peaking the buzz within Africa. Now, I'll give you an example of one of the utilizations of AI facial recognition. If you went to the US now, chances are 60% if they are looking for a suspect who has committed a crime. I think if they brought recognition here, 60% of the population will be suspected of committing a crime. Why? Because the AIs are trained on the data, and most of that data shows that it's the Black American community. That now, if you just Uganda, then all of us are going to be committing crimes every second.
So potential criminals.
Exactly. So we need to be, in terms of adoption, we need to be careful on how we utilize this. So we need to have, first of all, as I mentioned, AI, its application is about learning our behaviors. Now, we have models that have been trained on American behavior, European behavior. They cannot apply here. We need to use our own data to develop our own models. Get the model when it's fresh. If you decided to at least adopt the model, get it when it's fresh, then train it on its own data.
But how come such a technology, or among these new technologies, one, if it is introduced in China, you'd find that it is working best in Europe, in America, in Russia, and so many other continents? We have IT. I would really buy your point that some of these are not tailored to our settings, but we also have the IT experts would leverage on these new technologies, and we bring elements.
And that's what I was going to. This is highly data driven. We are a population that is still digitizing, which means the data we need to train these models to our own context is available, but not in the context or not in the format that can easily help us develop these models. Because most of our data is still physical, still on paper. We haven't gone ahead to digitize as much. Yes, efforts have been made to digitize, but these are models that are trained on large data sets, which we don't have at the moment. We are still in that period of digitization, so that we can actually be able to avail the fuel that actually drives the car, which is AI. So, and that's where the challenge is. Two, infrastructure. You mentioned underserved communities, and generally it is throughout within the African context, even in Uganda, that where the infrastructure has this relationship between infrastructure and content. Where you don't see content, there is no infrastructure. Where there is infrastructure is where the content is. So you realize those that do not produce content, as seen or not having content, won't have infrastructure. But government is actually moving towards, again, as NDP3, as you said, we actually investing a lot in those areas where we do not find private sector interested in setting up infrastructure. 3, we are also trying to build skills because we don't have the skills as yet. As I said, we usually come to the tail end of the technology adoption. But we also trying to build skills. How do we actually get to learn, understand? Because the critical thing here is, and I think this is why we continue following, we usually just pick and do not get to understand what are the components, what builds this technology up. If we get to understand what builds the technology, it means you can easily replicate it to your own context. But if you just pick it and use it, then there's so much abstraction. You are just a user, and you just build probably a few applications on top of that. But we want to be able to build skills that actually get to understand the context, to understand the proponents or the components within this technology, break it down, and then build it fresh. So in terms of how do we coming to your question, how do we get to the underserved communities? I was actually happy when Dr. introduced himself and said he's from the College of Agriculture. Because I think my best example is in the agriculture sector. I'll give you, currently, I think we moved away from the NAD system to the single spine agriculture extension system, where government is taking care of, taking back a particular function to be able to deliver extension services. But figures show that the current extension officer to farmer ratio is 1 to 1,800 farmers. What is actually said to be the optimum is 1 extension officer to 500 farmers. Why? Because the experts themselves tell us that optimally, for better service delivery, an extension officer will attend to maximum 3 farmers a day. Now, if you get a government working month is about 22 days. 12 months, you have about 1,200 farmers, or something like that. Or sorry, 700 farmers. So, and you get where the optimum comes from of 1 to 500. Now, if the ratio is 1 to 1,800, how many years is this extension officer going to take to get to address each of these farmers? Now, where does AI come in? If I model that actually gets this content, because most of the content is available. We've written books, we've written articles about the doctors have researched how to use the land better, soil preparation and everything, crop preparation. If I got that information and put it in an AI model that can actually, translate it to Runyachitara, can translate it to Uganda, can translate it to Ateso, that means I am actually providing a complementary service. I just need to provide, to avail this to the farmer. They do not need to wait for an extension officer. There, I'm actually using this AI in an applicable way. But then again, I said, the models available right now are not for Uganda, for us. You can, if you went to Google Translate and look at the translations that come out, if you put an English word and a statement and want it to Uganda or any local language, you can see the discrepancies in there because you totally understand. So that's why get our data digitized, then construct these models that are actually fitting within our context. We can actually exploit these opportunities.
I would say that goes back again to our experts, especially those that are in the field, to make us realize and also take advantage of these new technologies. When we talk about the Uganda that being translated on Google, I have had Ethiopians who have their local languages there, some of the languages of Ethiopian, about three. I have seen Kinyarwanda being interpreted on and translated on Google. If the Rwandese here in just a few kilometers from our border, if the Ethiopians can do it, why not the Waganda? Why not the Achoris? Why not the Wanyankore? Why not the Batoro?
I'm not saying we can't do it. I'm saying we need to do it. Of course, there is.
So they not taken advantage to do it.
See, at the end of the day, they should be a value add. This day is not about doing something for the sake of doing it. What value add? We probably, these experts haven't yet seen what apply, because most of these things are actually driven by private sector. Where does this apply? Where is the economic benefit? Okay, so if we probably get to see where these economic
Along the way, it takes me back to Makerere University, and I'm glad that Dr. Patrick, you're joining us this morning and also on this platform. About 5 radio stations covering this program, and many Ugandans would love to learn. But also, I'm looking at what are we doing? Are we doing really enough to embed all these interdisciplinary trainings at the intersection of tech and agriculture, especially when we talk about agriculture? And I'm glad that you come from that very department, from a very recognized and respected institution of land, but also you as a lecturer for some good time. What is your view on the readiness of Uganda's universities to train the next generation, especially when we talk about agri-tech and AI professionals? As well, give us examples of what University of Makerere is doing, especially when we talk about AI and some of the projects that we have worked on.
Is doing there are some efforts at the university to advance the AI technology, and actually in our teaching we've been trying to revise the curriculum in some level on how students can embrace AI. And of course, it's now public knowledge that AI is an important technology that we need to embrace. So presently the university even has a policy it has established for AI, because we know the challenges of plagiarism, the challenges of this artificial intelligence guy doing the work for you and writing for you a thesis, or writing, a proposal for you. There's a lot this tool can do actually. So there is actually a policy that has already been established at the university. So in terms of the university getting set for this development, for sure the university is aware, and even it's a global trend that all universities should take response to this advancing technology, especially in our academics. So presently, the university is getting ready to advance this, especially in the training, in how we handle it, in how we engage our students. But more importantly, for us, we are so keen about research, especially some of us who are in the field of science. We are so keen about research and how this artificial intelligence can support us in research. So presently, we are, for example, myself, I've been developing an environmental e-watch model, where you actually, a community is able to take photos wherever they are around the country and be able to use those photos to actually identify whether the area is highly degraded or not degraded, or it's productive. So we used quite a number of data set, quite a number of photos. And Amos was mentioning that you need a lot of data, a lot of data to develop something. So it's a small attempt, but we noticed that actually a person can take a photo, just a smartphone, and actually get quite a number of information, especially on whether the area the photo was taken is highly degraded or is very low in terms of productivity. That can be done through training a model, through this machine learning. So, but also in the context of research at the university, we in the College of Agriculture, we are slowly embracing the importance of AI, because you see, I mentioned earlier that as we look towards this increased population, limited land, And then, of course, the high demand for efficient use of these fertilizers, use of chemicals, optimizing the landscapes, using the land well. It's obvious that you need to look at these technologies. So, as you're aware, Makerere has been having a research and innovation fund. Many guys are doing this, many lecturers and staff are doing this in terms of research. But what I want to emphasize in the context of agriculture, of these inputs through optimization. So AI can actually help you. For example, if you want to do weeding, AI has robots that can actually help you to weed. In fact, people are promoting organic systems, limited use of chemicals. If you want to use less chemicals like herbicides to kill the weeds, there are robots now which can actually selectively remove all those weeds without using chemicals. So the proponents of organic agriculture are embracing these technologies. Yeah, but the technology is taking us towards that because you don't want to use chemicals. But again, you need some ways. The only way you need a robot which can actually come and pick these weeds very quickly, faster than a human being. But also, we are seeing efforts in terms of farm automation because currently, if you are going to optimize the water use, those who are going to do irrigation, if you're going to do irrigation, those who are doing water management, water can be scarce. So AI is helping us actually to put the right amounts of water. We have what we call moisture sensors. We have what we call automated system where the system can just automate, and there is no less water in the soil, just put more water. It can automate the system, and that is AI aided because it is like human being. It detects that, oh, now there is no water here, I need to add water. So we are seeing these technologies coming up in that context, but also the drone technology and if you're looking in the atmosphere, if you're taking a drone or taking pictures from above or satellite images, we're also seeing AI helping us to see where to apply these fertilizers, where there is need, because these are efficient tools. Where do we need fertilizer? You can have a big land, a typical farm, but not every part of the land needs the fertilizer, what we call precision agriculture. So the AI can actually show you that, you don't put here, but also it can detect for us that, hey, the pesticides, the pests, it's like you see armyworms. Last time we were attacked by armyworms, maize. You saw armyworms, how they affected the maize crop. AI actually at spatial level can show you that, hey, there is a swarm of threat coming to your field. By detection, it can detect there is a problem coming, and you quickly intervene to stop this. But also, you can detect in a field whether there is a pest or there is a disease. It quickly help you to intervene. So we are seeing quite a good technologies that can support agriculture, support optimization of these fields, and we think the future most likely is taking us to AI.
Some people that most of these initiatives only stop at the hill and you don't go down to the real beneficiaries, who are in this case the farmers. How are you bringing all these, you're telling us all these good initiatives and projects that you're working on to the common Ugandan who needs them in Kapchorwa?
Yeah, thank you, Amo. I think the issue of actually Makerere's mandate, every staff at the university, and we know it. We're supposed to do teaching, we're supposed to do research, and also do outreach. Those are the three mandates of any university. If you've heard the rumors saying or misinformation that we only teach, it's not true. Actually, we are supposed to teach, we are supposed to do research, we are supposed to do outreach. So our efforts actually, the university are supposed to reach out. And one way, of course, Makerere is doing it is we are normally having internship programs for students. We normally have research programs. We normally have outreaches to communities. And some of the AI that we are talking about, presently, yes, most of it is ongoing research, which we think still needs a lot of validation, ground truthing, testing. But I think Makerere University is not supposed actually to remain there as on the actually. We are not just at the hill, Mr. Ammon. We are trying to get out of the hill to reach out to the community, sir.
Okay. Like we say in international relations that there is no country that lives on its own island, I do believe that this the same narrative when it comes to the institutions, especially you who are in the teaching and also research, I do believe that you also benefit from data from different institutions, Ministry of Agriculture, and so many others. But you'd understand that in Africa, not just Uganda, uh, there is still lack of reliable data, especially on soil, which is always, even that information that is there, most times it is outdated and also scarce. How, what are you doing to make sure that you have better data that is reliable, which you say, and also Amos puts it well, that AI depends on data. When data is scarce, when data that we have is outdated, when even some people don't want to share their little research or their little data that they have. And I to work on this and also establish these partnerships, especially from government, other research institutions, but also the private sector that need to develop the latest data sets that are required for smart agriculture that you're talking about.
Thank you, Amon. Actually, from what Amos had presented earlier, it is really this is an area which needs a lot of data in whatever you are trying to develop. For sure, I've tested it myself when we tried to develop an app which was machine learning supported. But also in the context of agriculture, it's true our data is really not so really we don't have enough data to really help us run these models. But I know there are some efforts for sure. For example, the soil context, the government of Uganda through National Agricultural Research Organization and Makerere University, we are already updating the soil map for Uganda. We already started with some few areas in Masaka, in the East Jinja areas and Kampala. So there are efforts to update the soil data map, the soil data, but also, of course, there are other efforts, I think, under the narrow mandate to ensure that we have all the data sensitization to productivity of these areas across the country. But for sure, even in terms of weather data, in terms of other key parameters that we need for modeling, there's need for more effort as we move into AI. We need a lot of data sets put together, and of course this would help us to develop our locally contextualized models that can help us run this AI for the benefit of Ugandans and the communities.
Interesting. Thank you, Dr. Patrick. I come now to you, Moran. Moran, and you talked about how AI really is helping in the fight against corruption, analyzing those heavy documents, and just the same question that I put to Dr. Patrick, especially on data or access to information. I understand that transparency requires access to information, but you are either complete or not open, which also hinders our progress, especially in tracking and be able to understand where some money is being embedded. And one wonders what role can open data play, especially in enabling AI to support this anti-corruption, but also how can you, the civil society, push for this?
Thanks very much, Aman, for that question. Yeah, it is true. We still have challenges when it comes to access to information. I now have the Minister of ICT here, but that is still a very big challenge. And I think really that if we are to embrace AI, then what I must say that we need first walk the journey of digitalization, because we are talking about Uganda, where you can go to a ministry website and you may fail to get even the basic information. What is their mandate? Who is heading the institution? You go of a district, and the cow they have there as the cow was transferred 2-3 years ago. Or the LC5 lost the elections in 2021.
But the website is still.
So it is still, we still have a very big challenge of access to information, and of course even us where we are, there are very big challenges, and we have done studies on access to information. Of course, there are so many limitations. The one is that we're still having public offices that are still using the old system of files, that they're still using files and storing information in files and in boxes and in reports, and this information is not digitalized. But even where it is maybe in a soft copy, accessing it is hard. The processes are quite lengthy of application, paying fees, using a prescribed form, and in most cases, even the requests for information go unanswered. So access to information, I agree, it's a challenge. Although,
is it a means of hiding some information that some institutions or agencies are still on the old versions? They don't want to embrace these digital technologies, maybe to hide some information or hinder this information access.
there are
Could
several,
be intentional,
Yeah.
their strategy.
there are several issues there. There are issues to do with capacity. I know there are some, when you go to some of these local governments, they have told us that yes, they don't have the capacity. In terms of having the right equipment, you go to an office and there's only one computer. Some of them are still using the old computers of the 90s with a very big behind thing. You go to some, and it's an issue of personnel. Maybe there's only one personnel IT officer. Some don't even have IT officers to do that kind of work. We even did some project here in Kampala trying to make information on public contracts open. And we are picking information from the PMIS at KCCA, and then we have a user interface. After a few months, information was no longer coming, and the reasons, of course, were also not forthcoming. So there are challenges to do with that. But what I wanted to say is that not all government agencies are at the same level. There are some that actually make information quite available. I've been doing a lot of studies trying and accessing these websites. There are institutions like the Office of the Auditor General, for instance, that will consistently put out reports, the audit reports. You find them being available. You go to an agency like National Water and Storage Corporation, they have a lot of information on their website that is publicly accessible, and a few others, but there are others who don't. And also, when you ask the question on what is the intention of not making the information available, I've talked about the issue of capacity, the issue of resources, the issue of personnel, sometimes the issue of leadership. When you have a leadership that is quite committed to visibility and having, suppose that some of this information should ideally be public information. Things like procurement, things, bills of quantities, things like projects that are being done in a district, things like budgets. Idea, this is public information that should be easily accessible, but it's an issue of leadership as well. But also, you should also know that secrecy is also part of government. And we still have the official Secrets Act of 1950. We have really a combination of factors that make access to information a challenge. And of course, like I said, this would definitely, from what I must say, that we need huge data sets that will definitely affect the AI if we are to adopt it.
Interesting, but also we have concluded a very significant exercise by the Office of the Inspector General, especially people declaring their wealth. And I also saw that the IG said, is it over 90% of the government officials did declare? But some of this information, they say it is public, but others, they don't have access to that. Is there a better way we have at our play to use these new technologies to understand and be able to access this? Because you'd find that some people are using the same, but when they are actually putting wrong information, people who own structures in this city, they would say, I don't own any. And in that way, the country or the world is losing a lot in terms of faking information or also putting up fake information.
Thank you very much, Amon. I must say that there are some positives when it comes to wealth declarations, and they are negatives. Let me start with the positives. I think one, previously this was also a manual system. The declarations were being done manually. Now they have been digitalized, done through the online declaration system. I think that is a positive. Secondly, we now have a leadership code tribunal that can determine cases. Previously, it was the IGG exercising that mandate, which was challenged in the case of Ken Chamzi and I think also Fox Odoi, in terms of the IGG being the investigator, being the prosecutor, and also being the judge at the same time. Well, we now have a tribunal that can hear cases of such nature, of under declaration, over declaration, or things related to that. But of course, the declaration system is by and large just a ritual. It's by and large just a ritual. We have been trying to access that information, have failed. Previously, the excuse was that there was no form in the Leadership Code Act that they could base on to release the information. The form was previously, at least a response would come. Now there's no response at all, and yes, no response at all. And I am not aware of any single individual who has accessed declaration information. I'm not aware. At least from civil society, we have tried, individuals have tried, media people have tried. They have not accessed that information at all. So that's why
they say it is public.
That's why that's what I said. By and large, it is a ritual. Public, can you access it? You cannot access that. And we have engaged the same, and she's saying the law doesn't allow me. But there's also no law that stops her from making that information publicly available. I was in Europe sometime recently, and the people were sharing. I was at the UNODC office, and people are sharing what other countries are doing. Countries in Europe, a few countries in Eastern Europe, where they have systems where you just go on the system, you put in your national ID number, and you can view the assets of any leader, including the president. And when the people are showing us assets of their leaders, they are showing us where they have assets, their interests, their abilities, the loans they have. And there, it is working quite well. You can easily monitor that from anywhere.
Would it work here, really?
Here,
it would be the opposite.
If there was will for that to work, it can work, because already that information is already digitalized. What is missing is just an interface to make it public.
Is it an interface, or we lack also transparency, but also we lack the laws and policies to be put in place?
It is not an issue of law. It's not an issue of law. It's not an issue. Maybe it could be an issue of policy, that they don't want to make that information available. But I think the laws that we have currently don't stop that from happening. You can still make that information, but the will to make that information available is not there. There was some time back when somebody requested for information on permanent secretaries. Information on permanent secretaries, there were 3 conditions. And when you look at the reasons that were given for denial of that information, are basic reasons that talk about the right to privacy, and saying that there is no form, just excuses. But you see, when you become a leader, there are risks that come with that. You cannot raise the whole issue of privacy as a limitation. I know it is there, it is constitutional, but that cannot really override the whole purpose of why we have access to information as one of the rights that we have in the Constitution and several other laws. So for me, I think the whole thing is about that. The will is not there to make this information available, and also partly the will is not. And you see, who would make these laws if there is need for laws? They will engage in Parliament some time back when they were amending the Leadership Code Act, and the issue was on wealth declaration of the spouses and children. And it is very, very well known that the assets in this city owned by 8-year-olds, by 9-year-olds, and these are proceeds of corruption hidden in names of children and relatives. But when the Parliamentary Legal Committee, and if I'm in politics, why should I bring in my wife and children? But you see, this is where you're hiding the work. So you are looking at people who, by and large, are corrupt. They are corrupt. They have been bribed, like we're seeing now, and we're telling them to legislate against themselves. I mean, it will not happen. It won't happen. Yes.
Discussion after this break. I'm taking a very short break, and when I return, we'll be continuing with the discussion. I do have a privilege and honor to have the experts in the studios of UBC who are really educating, inspiring, and also informing us about the benefits of artificial intelligence, but also how we can leverage as the country, especially when we talk about Uganda's development. 760776511426 is the number you can call after the break, and also it is important that you share your perspectives and what you think, or if you have any concern can be addressed by my guests in the studios. But you can as well send your messages 0701 24 26 47. Yes, I'll be reading your messages and also picking your calls on 0776 511 426. You tell us what you think needs to be done to make sure that we'll benefit from these new technologies, especially artificial intelligence. Ground Zero takes a break, and I'm coming back in just a bit. I pray you don't go away.
This is Ground Zero Season 2. Stay tuned. We shall be right back.
UBC Radio brings to you the Timeline Radio Show, the space for civic and political rights for Ugandans. Tune in every Monday night at 10:15 p.m. to know your obligation in society as a citizen. UBC Radio, inspiring Uganda.
Don't miss UBC Radio Ground Zero every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. We host credible and relevant guests to discuss pertinent issues of national importance aimed at addressing people's concerns. UBC Radio Ground Zero, right here on UBC Radio.
Your Voice Talk Show.
The biggest concern now is the quality of education. That is what is bothering us so much.
Addressing Uganda's governance issues.
Incidentally, there is now a new trend. There is more land wrangles in families than Vivanja land title holders.
Monday to Friday at 7 p.m.
With this integration of East African community, we must work hard so that we benefit.
Your Voice Talk Show, only on UBC Radio, inspiring Uganda.
Poverty in your life is just about to die. The Parish Development Model, PDM, is here to transform your life.
Now me, Mariza, a villager with one goat. How can I even benefit from this so-called PDM?
Mariza.
What, neighbor?
Mariza, stop complaining. I have overheard you complaining about the Parish Development Model money. But what you need to know, everyone who earns below 1 million shilling per year like you can benefit from PDM.
Tell me how.
What you need to do is simply join an enterprise group of other goat keepers in our village. Then our IOC chairperson, the one you know, will guide you on how to register your enterprise. Our vegetable growing group is already registered.
Really?
Yes.
Let me do it now.
Just do it now.
Thanks, neighbor, for opening my eyes about PDM.
You're welcome.
Let me even hurry and go to the chairman. Where are my shoes?
You hurry now. The Parish Development Model is an initiative of the government of Uganda through the Ministry of Local Government designed to transform the lives of all Ugandans for the better. PDM, my parish, my development, my life. UBC Radios, inspiring Uganda.
The Education Forum program. Education Forum, a platform for trends and developments in the education sector. We are your reference and reliable source of information. The Education Forum, right here on UBC Radio, inspiring Uganda.
Welcome back. Ground Zero Season 2 continues.
Welcome back from that very short break. This is UBC Ground Zero. We are on 5 radio stations covering this program. UBC Radio on 98.0 FM. In Kampala, we are also on 97.4 FM in Arua, 98.4 FM in Rira. We are on another radio station, Butebo Radio, in Eastern Uganda, on Mbale, 96.9 FM. In case you're in Soroti, we are 98.4 FM. We are on another radio station, that is Western Nile FM, on 98.0 FM. That covers Choli sub-region, Lango sub-region, Teso sub-region, Karamoja sub-region, and all the northern parts of this country. And also we are live on Magic 100 FM, that covers all central parts of this country. And we're also live on Voice of Wunduvuju. The repeat of this program is always on Sunday from 3 p.m. to 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. and also on Voice of Individual on Monday, same time. We are streaming live on YouTube. You just put UBC Ground Zero and be part of the conversation. You can always share your perspectives there, and we will always be able to read them through, but also my guests in the studios be able to address them. It is it is this time that you share your perspectives, and also we address all your concerns. 0776 511 426 is the number you can call and also participate in this program. We always value your concerns and also value perspectives, and we do believe that we can build this country together. I do have in the studios of UBC a very special team of guests. Dr. Patrick Musinguzi is the soil scientist and lecturer at Makerere University. Maro Nagaba is the executive director coming from Anti-Corruption Coalition Uganda, and Moses Mpungu is the principal information technology officer coming from the Ministry of ICT and National Guidance. We are talking about embracing new technologies for Uganda's development, a case of artificial intelligence. All right, I do have some messages coming through. We have Abedi. Abedi Obedi. Do I need AI? Do we need AI in Africa? Are we not rushing? Are we not rushing? And we may end up missing and missing a lot, especially from our economies. I think we are still backward, that we need to really to study new systems, new technologies. When we rush, we may crash. Okay, this is, I don't know whether you're Obedi, but you wrote Abedi. We thank you, Abedi, for this perspective. For him, he says we may not need AI. We need to study these new technologies to be able to benefit from them. 776 511 426 is the number you can call. Mercy says that Mercy is listening from Ginger and says when we use AI, they say it is plagiarism. It has context of plagiarism, and how best can we protect ourselves from being victims and culprits of plagiarism, since most of the data that is on AI is picked from all the other sources, and you can't know where the sources, you may not know where these sources are, and you may end up missing and also being a victim of copyright. I think so. Okay, thank you, Catherine. Someone says, why does Africa always following others? Yet we have the IT specialists, the experts, even in your studios there. What is stopping us from dropping our own, and then the world also follows for once? Or if we are developing from, benefiting from theirs, can't we make them better and suit for our own environments? Okay. Someone says, indeed, we need policies. No, they said we need policies to regulate these new technologies like AI, or else we're going to be doing a lot of mistakes and don't benefit from these new technologies. Thank you. I wish you could always be putting your names and where you're listening in from. This is Mutiaba. Mutiawa says, I like the environment. If Dr. Patrick can complete on that as soon as possible, I do think that you're going to be helping so much of the Ugandan farmers. But do you have options in case we have results of the high degraded areas? If your system can show which crops can grow where best, then it will be beneficial. Okay. I am listening in from Mukono. I thank you for the program. Most of the policies that have introduced to regulate these new technologies, especially AI, are those that reduce its use, which limits its use indeed, and also not promoting its innovation and creativity, as more people would be limited by these policies, and you'd find that we cannot benefit from AI. Keep your messages coming through. Someone also said, how is this civil society organization embracing these new technologies, especially the fight against corruption? I expected platforms that Agaba would be promoting, that not just civil society, but would be engaging all of us to use them and be able to get these thieves and put them to book. This would be the best new technology that we need in this country. I'm JB. Okay, coming back to the studios. For my guests to to address some of these concerns. That there are some pointed to the policies, others said we don't need these ones, we need to really study them, others pointing to plagiarism, especially of the content, others say okay, I'll start with you, Maron, and get to ICT and also come to Dr. Patrick.
Thank you very much. I think I will respond to maybe two questions. The first question was on whether we need AI in Africa, and I believe yes, we do. And the earlier we adopt that, the better. Then the other question was on embracing some of these technologies in the fight against corruption. What I must say is that we are not yet there. We are just taking the first steps. And I talked at the start that what we are doing from civil society, where I come from, is that we are developing chatbots for now that can help us synthesize and analyze large volumes of data to be able to come up with a few pointers in terms of where the corruption is likely to be, to do some kind of like corruption risk assessment and identify some red spots that we can focus on. And like I said, that there are huge amounts of data that are coming out, especially like from government, in terms of these audit reports, in terms of procurement documents, in terms of bills of quantities, in terms of contracts, that these chatbots can help us to analyze. But what I must say is that these are still the initial stages of developing such AI systems, and we still have a lot to learn. Unfortunately, we don't have a tool per se that we can say that can identify the corrupt but what we are developing are tools and systems that can help us predict where corruption is likely to happen by identifying those red spots and flagging such spots in terms of concentrating our efforts. Yeah, so it is still a process, and we are following up these new developments, and definitely if such technologies come up and they're usable, we can always share. I also agree with the point on regulation. I believe that regulation is quite important because we were seeing people using these AI technologies, but I don't seem to understand whether we have a legal framework so far that is regulating that. Maybe I will learn from my senior colleague here, Amos, with regard to that, seeing being used in, for instance, in education. I was on TikTok recently, and I saw a young man who was graduating, and in his speech he said that I want to thank ChatGPT for for doing all my courseworks, and for helping me with the dissertation. That was his speech. Okay, I don't know whether it was fake or true, but it is true that I don't know whether, for instance, all universities have technologies that and plagiarism technologies that can predict plagiarism here and there. I don't think that all institutions have that already. So I think really we really need to, as a start, we need to have a strong policy on that, and then we have other frameworks in place that can help us embrace these technologies. Thank you.
Interesting. ICT, Amos.
Thank you, Amon, and the listeners that have sent in these questions. I think I will start with Abed, and I will also, in addressing Abed, I will also address another question which talks about why does Africa follow others. We need AI. the benefits are immense. But I remember mentioning that we get the benefits if we actually do contextualize this to our environment. So yes, if we rush, we shall end up missing and messing up a lot, true. And that's why I mentioned earlier that our starting point, our foundation is actually to understand the conceptualization and components of AI, how it's built, such that we built our own models to be able to contextualize them or customize them to Africa. That's when we shall have to reap the benefits. So that's why I say we can make these things better and suited for Africa. In terms of utilization again, of course we've started using it. Mentioned very big case in point is the universities, education institutions. ChatGPT is doing courseworks, is doing, but of course, Doctor mentioned that the university already has a policy on use of AI in terms of addressing plagiarism. But then again, and I think this is one of the things that Abed is trying to allude to. Universities have had anti-plagiarism policies available, with or without AI. As a student, you know exactly what you need to do. You know, if you are basically getting something, if you're writing a statement, if it exists, it needs to be attributed to the author. Now, you're using a tool that clearly does not do that. Even without an AI policy in the university, you already know that you are contravening the infringement, the copyright and plagiarism policy. So it is all about responsibility. If we are utilizing these technologies, we need to use them responsibly. It is an old basically it's an old adage. The same thing we do with social media and everything. Yes, they have benefits, but how do we use these technologies to exploit the benefits, to earn the benefits, and not infringe on the laws or other people's rights? So it's all about responsible use. Basically, that's what I can say. In terms of policies, we currently don't have a policy on AI. We do have, and this was our first thought. Again, coming from the previous question I was addressing, this was our approach that first we need what we call an ethical framework. How do we have an ethical framework that can guide and support the use of the technology, but ethically, without infringing anyone's right, without infringing or going against any particular laws? And that is something that is in draft. But arising out of the Chiang Kwanzaa resolutions of June 2024, last year, if you remember, I'm sure Maron is, because he continues to watch government, was aware of the convention that happened June 2024 between the PSCs and the ministers at the end of the financial year. They came out with a resolution that we need an AI governance framework, basically to guide us on how do we adopt this technology. The ministry had already gone ahead to draft the ethical framework, but now we're actually moving ahead to actually drafting a governance framework on how best to adopt the AI. And I think our approach here is to avoid this conundrum of policies basically over-regulating. Our approach is we are taking an understanding of how can AI benefit us, how can AI affect us. So the approach is get use cases. I already gave a use case, and Doctor has given some use cases of how to apply that in agriculture, how to apply AI in agriculture. So get the NDP4 is on 4 areas, concentrating on 4 areas that the president calls the ATMs: agriculture, tourism, minerals, and science. So we're looking at this theme, these 4 areas. what are the use cases in those areas. Then we come up with the best use cases. Now that helps us balance between how does this use case apply, how can it affect, what are the benefits, what are the disbenefits, and how can we find the balance between regulation or under regulation and over regulation, so that we can be able to allow the innovation to happen within the system, the ecosystem, but again, be able to enable the responsible use and minimize the disbenefits, because everything comes with a benefit and a disadvantage. So we don't currently have a policy, and there are no policies that are actually over-regulating. Yes, particular institutions, depending on, you see, at the end of the day, an institution like Makerere, because it can easily see, or it is easily affected by the use of these technologies. Sometimes we over-regulate, thinking, of course, government is very risk averse. So we start from the risk perspective. But with technologies, I think we've learned to first understand, let it give a simple enabling environment to be able to grow the technology, and then come up with a regulation that is actually fitting and balances. Because at the end of the day, our role is to provide an enabling environment. It doesn't make sense for us to think that we are providing an enabling environment, yet we are stifling innovation on one end. So that is where we want to be. So we've moved away from the risk perspective, risk first. We are looking at try to understand where our benefits, where our challenges, and then come in a middle ground of how we can be able to address that technology.
Interesting. Thank you, Amos. I come to you, Dr. Patrick.
Thank you, Amon, and our listeners for the questions. For sure, these are very good questions. I think I'll just add to my colleagues have just elaborated more on this. I think on AI, I just want to add that we need the AI. Actually, we are not going backwards. Seems we have just to embrace this technology fully. I know it has a lot of challenges because we might lose some jobs, some of us, because of the AI. But nevertheless, there are potentially much more benefits when you look at the whole technology. I think you've seen Meta AI, you've seen Google is also trying to have an AI there. You see the ChatGPT. So the whole thing is on us, especially we the users. We cannot go back to, changing that. I saw the other day where we saw, actually we are using, I think you can get now tractors driving themselves and doing the farming very well, the tilling without a driver or any person. Yeah. So you've seen self-driven vehicles. So we are moving actually so fast towards use of AI.
When shall Africa reach there?
Africa is actually moving. You can see on our phones, at least we have some AI supported tools. We are moving. So I think it's just, policies are coming up. Once these policies come and embrace this fully and have a lot of a system where we can get a lot of data to develop our own AI, we are moving there, Mr. Amon. Then there was, of course, concerns of plagiarism. This is the key for universities. We want to actually, I think she was Mercy. We just want to, we always remind students that plagiarism is not allowed. And of course, this is no shortcut. We normally have even plagiarism software we normally check. So it's a choice. If you want to pass, just avoid plagiarism.
And you also check with AI.
We can know that this is something which is not yours. We can know that this is not your document, this is not your thesis, this is not your publication. There are softwares which can track. We can also know this is also original. So that one, my sister here has to just be aware, so that is not caught off guard. Concerning the I think Africa, we should just follow suit with what's happening in the foreign countries. We just need to embrace this fully. I know really in agriculture, we are still rural based. We are still struggling with even accessing fertilizers as a country, even just accessing these chemicals. We are still challenged. We don't have big factories for some of these inputs. But yeah, even you see people are still using these phones. There are no smartphones in these rural systems. Some people are still using our, small phones. So there are still challenges, but Africa, I think we just need to quickly learn how to use these smartphones, technologies, and we move on. There was an issue of e-watch. Yes, we developed the environmental e-watch from Tiaba question here about the environmental e-watch. It is, yes, a tool that we are trying to engage with the Ministry of Water and Environment and also maybe NEMA to see how this app can actually help the community to understand land degradation, but even track water quality in those areas, but also track productivity. Actually, on the next few weeks, I will be going to Mbarara to show them how this e-watch works. So basically, the tool, they are moving on. We are moving in research in the direction of AI. That's a fact. And the colleague asked, why don't we actually know areas where crops are suitable? Can this app support us to know where crops are suitable? Which areas are best suitable for which crops? Yes, this is a good proposal. We can look into it in our research to get just a quick support to our farmers on where they can.
Because you have indicated that this place or this area is already degraded, and do you give me the options of the other crops? You'd say that perhaps matoke doesn't grow here, but you can opt for sweet potatoes.
Yes, Mr. Amo, we are trying to move towards research, towards this direction. In fact, the app is supposed actually to tell us whether the area is even very productive. So it's not easy to reach that level. As our brother said, we need a lot of data. So we are in progress in terms of, but this app was basically developed for monitoring the environment mainly. But of course, it can also go into some bit of agricultural support in terms of crop suitability for different production areas.
Okay. Kavagambe says that what is letting us behind is that, especially in institutions of government, is that they are still employing the old guards who don't know anything to do with technologies. And when these new technologies come, they need to be trained by the experts, IT experts, who are the young ones. And by the time they want to put them on board, they think they are threatening their positions and jobs. Okay. As Kavagambe, some also people say, how can ordinary Ghanaians not just take experts participate in AI movement? Is there any special space for local innovation at the grassroots levels? What is the Ministry of ICT thinking about this? How can they provide a platform for young innovators? AI seems futuristic, not something that we need to think about today based on what is coming from the other countries. How does it solve everyday problems in Uganda today? For example, if someone is running a small farm or a border stage, how can they be able to know and benefit? With digital literacy in some rural areas, how can AI be rolled out in so many places in the Kampala if even those who are in town have not yet really embraced AI? Okay. So coming through, but time is not on my side. I would love to engage my panelists in the studios of UBC to tell us also the risks that come with AI, in that we can be in the know that we don't mess up like some person put it in the messaging here. But I would love also to pick one or two calls from the other side of radio, callers who would love to participate on phone 776-511-426. You're live on radio.
Yes, good afternoon.
A very good afternoon to you. What's your name and where are you calling us from? Actually, it's
My
good
name
morning.
is Timothy. I'm calling from Chira.
Yes, Timothy.
Now, it is true in Uganda we need to embrace new technologies that are coming up, as we can see. But before we even go ahead with that, we still have so many challenges. For example, we look at the infrastructures. Before we embrace these new technologies, there are still rural areas in Uganda that do not have electricity. Of course, as you are aware, you cannot access these technologies without power. Okay? So we still need to solve these issues. Then also, we look at the internet access and affordability. We still have rural areas in Uganda where internet is actually a problem. Zero network, affordability. Internet in Uganda is so expensive. So we also need to first overcome these challenges before we can go ahead to actually embrace technologies in Uganda. Thank you so much.
Most welcome. Thank you, Timothy. Okay. At least we have also live on UBC Ground Zero.
Thank you, Amon. You're talking to Juma from Butebo.
Most welcome, sir.
Thank you so much. Can Uganda rise up and fight corruption? Then toll-free line need to be for serving the nation. Let those toll-free numbers to be available 24 hours. Because sometimes the community receive those toll-free, they end up being seen at the places like they are for album worship. You call here toll-free, you are in the same, you're in shortage of power, you're in darkness like 2 days. The customer care who is going to talk to you about the reception who is going to receive your call. He's going to say you are going to send something from Kampala, maybe from Seda, where they are coming to rectify the problem. You will find like 1 month you have not seen anybody. But for electricity, sometimes they take long, like maybe 4 days. The person who is coming, the person that will climb the pole, electric pole, is not going to do anything. Just checking something whereby for us we don't understand what is going on. We may feel like he has come to do the service we deserve. Another one will come in the same way. So all those time wasted, our fridges, our electronics are dying. And the time this power is going to come back will come back either in a abnormal way, if you hit all the connected electronics, and how best can really government stand up how to serve the nation? We need service deliveries and the accountability for our taxpayers' money. We want to see the services of our taxpayers. Thank you so much.
Most all right. People sharing their concerns here on UBC Ground Zero. Messages are still coming through. Jimmy says, I expect AI for general elections that we are expecting in 2026. If someone came up with that, it will be helping, especially when we talk about governance in the country. And I know many people are not opting for looking for votes, but how they can still vote. And also says that we need to generate an AI that will really help in power generation. Umeme workers, now you EDCL, they will power off Kampala parts without any reasons. If you have issues with Nigeria, you will just cut off power. But if we had AI, they will be balancing places and switching off one at a time if they have to do. But the things of depending on human error, sometimes you have issues with human and they take it personal when it comes to service delivery. All right. Allow me now pause messages for now, and I go back to the studios to get the way forward from my guest in the studios, the way forward, but also looking at the risks that may come up with AI and how best can we avoid them. I will start with you, Amos, because you are a focal point, especially when we talk about these new technologies and AI in particular.
Thank you very much, Amon, and listeners anyway, for the engagement. Now, incidentally, in the calls, they already, as I was listening, they were already highlighting areas where AI can help. For example, if you've made calls to your EDCL for power and you're taking 30 days, surely if you had an AI sitting on top of that data, it can easily come up with the issues and understand where in the process these things are. So it already shows the applications that you can get in AI. I also agree with Timothy. We do have challenges in terms of infrastructure. Of course, the docket that the ministry is responsible for, that is internet access and affordability. But again, as mentioned, we also have support infrastructure to ICT, like electricity. But these are all issues that are being addressed along the way. Of course, we cannot, it is, I think at the time I started working in government, I remember the figures we were quoting then was about 10% the population on the electricity grid. Now we are reporting, I think, something to do with 40 to 50%, which is an improvement. It has, we've moved the journey. The same with internet access. In government, at that time, the cost of 1 megabit per second was $4,500. Right now, government is looking at a cost of internet being at $35 per 1 megabit per second. That's in a space of about 14 years. So I think trends are, efforts are being made, and we are trying to get there. It might not be as fast as the population expects, but we are getting there. Now, coming to AI, yes, we've seen the benefits. They are immense, but the risks are also there. We've already discussed one that is happening within the education sector, plagiarism. But I think the biggest risk with AI is the encroachment on privacy. We understand, as mentioned, this is data. Because it is artificial intelligence and we are trying to understand the human behavior, it means most of the data that it consumes is based on personal behavior, which basically means it is personal data. Now, we need to be able to show or balance the fact that you can access the data from a person, but should not be able to expose the person from whom that data comes. And that is our biggest problem with AI. That is the biggest risk. The data comes from individuals, but we also have to be able to protect individuals. Best case scenarios or the best examples of best applications of AI mentioned within agriculture, but health. I imagine if my health data ended up somewhere in the public domain, or Amon's data ended up in the public domain. It is critically sensitive data, personally identifiable data, and it ends up in the public domain just because it's been put in an AI model. That is our biggest risk. And that is why, as I mentioned, what we thought about first as a ministry is developing an ethical framework. We are also moving forward to actually address that, complement it. Of course, there is already a Personal Data Protection Act, but we are also complementing that with, because you realize the act is mainly talking about personal data. That means data from an entity like Maron's, which might be sensitive. Of course, for him, I'm just using as an example, but looking at private sector, for example, banking, if you get data from StanChart, DFCU, somehow exposed it and StanChart gets to learn of DFCU data or something like that, then you've also put that company at risk in terms of their business perspectives. So we need to, so we are developing what we call the National Data Utilization Strategy. That helps us to, as I mentioned, the fuel for this car called AI is data. That helps us to actually put a strategic direction, a strategic setting on how we can safely be able to utilize the data that we collect, and most especially through these systems, because the current data ecosystem we have was written 1999, 1997. It was based on surveys, censuses, and things like that. We hadn't yet fully digitized, but realized that we collect a lot of data, most especially government collects a lot of data. Almost every service we give is based on you as an individual. So we first identify you, and then we provide a service thereafter, which means you leave us with a lot of data. But the same thing with private sector, with most especially the highly regulated, the KYC. First get to know who you are before they give you a service. Now, this is the data that we need to run our models. So how do we put a clear governance structure, a clear, an appropriate structure that allows both private sector, government, researchers, and entities to actually be able to utilize this data, but safely, without encroaching on anyone's privacy. Okay. Since you said we are giving the last swimmer, there was a question on what is the ministry doing about the innovation ecosystem. supporting the innovation ecosystem. Government is doing two things, most especially the ministry. One, we are setting up hub infrastructure. We have a national ICT innovation hub in Nakawa, but we've gone ahead to set up regional infrastructure, regional hubs. For purposes of sustainability, we are partnering with universities. We have one in Kabale University, we have another in Soroti University, we have another in Muni University in Arua. We are actually trying to now look at partners, help us to expand these beyond. Of course, the start is public universities. If we can have another in Busitema, Gulu, there's already one in Imbarara and Makerere, but those were not fully funded. Those were not funded by the ministry, but we have at least connection with us. We have partnerships. So we're setting up infrastructure to be able to avail. We moving forward to setting up.
Makere University, Patrick, is just next to you.
No, as I mentioned, there's one with Makere University, which was funded by a different partner, UNDP, not funded by the ministry, but we actually do have a collaboration between that innovation hub and
I started to see the facial expression of Dr. Patrick changing.
Two, we know, as mentioned, AI. Again, the other bit of avoiding the misuse and everything and the exploitation of AI, the opportunities, is digital literacy. We are running a number of programs on digital literacy. I don't know if you've heard of the DigiTrack. The DigiTrack, it's a moving lab that has actually, I think, between 2023 and now, we've trained about 30,000 Ugandans. And these are not, this is offering basic skilling, ICT skilling, not in education, formal education. Goes and parks at a marketplace within the town, whichever town, and the market vendors, anyone can come and access them.
Okay, your parting shots?
Yeah. Parting shots. AI is here to stay. AI is beneficial to us. We cannot, as Patrick mentioned, we cannot move backwards. We're going to embrace this. Critical is to be able to embrace it and use it responsibly.
Okay, thank you so very much, Amos Mpugu. I come to you, Maron, and I'll end with Patrick. Your way forward and also your parting shots.
Yeah, thank you very much, Amon. Of course, the challenges of AI have been well elaborated, but maybe to add on just one, is that we still need human intelligence, much as we're having intelligent computers, because there are some elements that you don't get from computers, like the human touch. Just imagine you're calling a helpline, you have a sick person, you have a patient, and it's a chatbot responding to you, you get it. Or you need the counseling, you need help, and then it is a program, computer program. So we still need that issue of managing emotions, managing feelings. That can't go away because we are human beings, much as the computer are marvelous. Just two questions that were raised. One from Timothy wasn't a question, but he was talking about the structural challenges that we have as a country. Of course, yeah, we have to be cognizant of those, that we still have challenges in terms of, there are even some districts you go to and you cannot access internet. We are in West Nile recently at the district headquarters, and just getting internet connectivity to sustain a Zoom call was a challenge. And this is a district headquartered in a town, in an urban area. It was a very, very big challenge. So yeah, true. And of course, challenges to do with electricity. I will not go into those. I know there are so many issues with electricity now. I will not go into that. But the challenges are there. They are structural. But that shouldn't stop us, I think, from progressing with AI. Juma asked an interesting question that can Uganda rise up and fight corruption? The answer is yes. Ugandans are resilient. Ugandans are fighters. What they need is leadership. We need to be led from the top, whether it is the president, whether it is the ministers heading ministries, whether it is permanent secretaries, whether it is me as my own heading my home or my institution. I need to show leadership, and really that is very, very important. Without leadership, we can't fight corruption. But with clear leadership, we can fight corruption the way we fought Ebola, the way we fought COVID, the way we fought HIV and other insurgencies. We can win, and I'm sure we can win if the leader was tuned to that. In terms forward. I think we need a policy. We need the policy because this is an emerging area and we're already using these technologies. So I think as a ministry, we need to think about at least having a policy framework. The institutional setup, the ministry might sit and other institutions. I don't know whether they are figured in having either a department or a division or whatever that's as well being a new field. Talking about, of course, the infrastructure, I'm glad you've talked about the infrastructure they're putting up in different institutions. But I think also in terms of teaching, I think this is one of the areas that could be embraced fully. I don't know whether universities have already embraced AI as a field, as a distinct field when it comes to ICT. But I feel that really we should embrace this. You go in some of these universities in Europe, you'll find that they have already embraced. You go, you find a student doing a chatbot as coursework. For instance, is one university we visited in Europe. They're doing these things that the innovation, they're doing them as coursework, and these are undergraduate students. So I think we really need to come up with courses that focus on innovations like AI, and then of course lastly, I think government should also start adopting the way they adopted the e-governance, start adopting some of these e-techs in delivery of services. So what is it in terms of the way forward? In terms of the parting shot, one, I think AI is here to stay. Like Amos said, it is important that we embrace it. Some of us are already embracing it in our everyday work, and also it's important that we read and we are aware of these technologies, the pros and cons, and how we can use them in our everyday work. Lastly, on corruption, I think the war on corruption is winnable, but it starts with us as individuals. Personal integrity is important. And I think I would want to encourage Ugandans that starting with you, have those ethical values as an individual. In the space that you occupy, in your home, in your institution, in your community, set those values that you want to be followed. Because now we are looking at corruption that is everywhere. Recently, I managed to escort, sorry for them, but I escorted a colleague to a school, was going to see the child who was in the school around here in Kampala. And the child was running for public office, wanted to be a timekeeper in office, time prefect, something like that. And they were in
Primary, secondary.
Elections, the primary 5. And he was buying bags and bags of sweets to go.
With posters, by the way.
Done. So now we are buying sweets to take and give. And when we reached at the school, the son was disappointed. So I asked her, well, why are you disappointed? Your father has bought the sweets. He said, no, the sweets are not enough. And you see, in the primary 7, there are this number of students. In the primary 2, there are this. In the primary 3, there are this. Now, the sweets are not enough to give it. Yes. I went back home, I found my daughter who is in the primary 5. She also told me that she's also standing for sports prefect. So now among the things they're asking were the same things. Posters and sweets. Some money for sweets. So I told the mother, I'm going to buy the posters, it's okay, but I will not buy sweets. Let her go and stand, let her make her points. If she wins, she wins. If she doesn't, it's not the end of the world. They're waiting for her. So I think even in the spaces they occupy, let us set out some values that can be coped and create that kind of climate that can help us to address the problem of corruption. Thank you.
Most welcome, Maran. And I come to Dr. Patrick, coming from the Institution of Learning and Academia. I do believe that we have learned a lot from our discussion, but what is your take? And also for our dear listener, what is the take home, your way forward in terms of your way forward, and also parting shots?
Yeah, thank you so much, Amon, and the listeners. I just want to add a few risks in addition to our colleagues. One, we noticed that AI actually needs a lot of check. Actually, it's not the original information we get from AI. So there is there, if you don't check, you may end up in really trouble. And also, as there are job risks, for sure, AI is threatening jobs everywhere. I don't know whether this is being taken seriously, but it's a very big risk. So that's, they are losing originality in the thinking. So most of the people you see now, they are not thinking. They have reached what we call the ETC, end of thinking capacity. I mean, they just run there, they get information. There's not that originality. So it's a big risk to losing really intellectualism in our community. But also, I want to just encourage the listeners that indeed it's possible to run AI even in your small farm. I used somebody who was worried, what do we do with this AI even in your small farm? You have a phone, you can use that phone to really help you to do a lot of things with AI. You can use Meta AI, you can use Chat GPT, you can use many other tools now. It can give you a lot of information, especially on how to manage the soils, how to manage the water, how to manage the crop, how to manage the harvesting. So you just need use of that technology. It's really a lot of information that can help, and it's sometimes contextualized, sometimes. But of course, the big risk is the data is not. Some of this data is being generated by somebody somewhere, not us. Like CIT minister should actually be in charge of all this data, but we have not reached that level where data is we are fully in charge as a country, as individuals. That data which you see us using as AI is not ours as of now. Somebody is taking control of us. I think on the way forward, I want to just say that as Ugandans, we need to invest in data sets. Let's really invest in research, because if we don't have a lot of data on all these things, like in agriculture, sincerely, we need a lot of investment in all these things that I've been running some models in research as crop modeling and soil modeling, but I struggle to get data, just data, on detailed data on most of the things we do in Uganda. So we need to invest heavily in data sets, in research, but also I think, Mr. Amon, we need to look at the bundles. Really, bundles are a challenge. Accessing data is quite expensive. I don't know my colleagues how they feel, but
Amos will work on that.
accessing bundle is not an easy thing. Data bundles, and of course, the infrastructure that supports how we use. But I also want to remind our colleagues that as a soil scientists, I can't forget to tell you that you need to protect the soil. Actually, a country which destroys the soils destroys itself. And that's something I can remind all of us, that we need to protect the soil, we need to build for the future generation and the ages to come. So I want to thank you all for joining us, and thank you so much for listening to me and us.
Thank you so very much, Patrick, and the panelists we had in this program. We come to the end of our conversation. I want to thank our dear listener for being part of us from the time we started until now that we end our discussion. Been on 5 radio stations covering this program: UBC Butebo, UBC West Nile, UBC Magic, and also the Voice of Bundubujo, and we are been talking about embracing new technologies for Uganda's development, a question on artificial intelligence. And I had the privilege and honor to have Dr. Patrick Msinguzi, the soil scientist and the lecturer from Makerere University, and also Maro Nagaba, is the executive director at Corruption Coalition Uganda. Well, thank you for coming through, gentlemen. And also Amos Mpungu is the principal information technology officer coming from the Ministry of ICT and National Guidance. And we really understand that AI is here to stay. So you better avail yourself to benefit from these new technologies, embrace them, especially for your personal community and also Uganda's development, especially when we look at AI and so very many other technologies. And someone has sent a message that AI is here to stay, and also corruption. I think that will be another topic for another day, but we have heard from government represented here on our platform by Amos Mpungu, and also civil society by Maro Nagaba, and also it was a privilege having academia. So the combination of government, civil society, and academia, I think in this program was, and also in this edition, was so much important, especially in our discussion. And I want to believe that our dear listener, you picked a leaf from our conversation. The message is consistent. Uganda, and we need AI, has the potential not just to consume technology, but could to create opportunities, shape opportunities, and also we can use it to solve our unique challenges. It is here to stay, but we must use it ethically. But over dependence on this may take away your intelligence. We need also that human touch. We need that human intelligence. So don't just depend on AI. We know your voice of individual on Butebo Radio, on Magic 100 FM, on Western Nile Radio, and also on UBC Radio with Jojo Ngovi. I'm Pere Amanotega, Alumni Outside Out, and also our guest that we had today. Thank you for making it to UBC Radio and also UBC Ground Zero, and for educating the people of Uganda. We can't take your time and for your presence for granted. For Peter Amanotega, allow me now to sign out.
Ground Zero Season 2, a production of Uganda Broadcasting Corporation, UBC, inspiring Uganda. It's hot.
We passed it. We didn't know exactly what the problem was on the ground. There is no pretending about the effect of this thing. There's no pretending about that. Nobody showed. It's a problem.
It's balanced.
This is not the stage at which you start planning to tax a commodity like coffee, especially from down there.
It's intellectually engaging.
The Constitution provides that the land must be registered under the National Senior System, which is one of those that supervise.
Ground Zero Season 2, live and syndicated on public and national broadcaster, UBC, inspiring Uganda.
UBC Radio brings to you the Timeline Radio Show, the space for civic and political rights for Ugandans. Tune in every Monday night at 10:15 p.m. to know your obligation in society as a citizen. UBC Radio, inspiring Uganda. Uganda's #1 hits.
Keeping
it home based. You are listening to UBC Radio.
This is UBC Radio. Tune in for news.
At UBC Radio, we bring you Uganda's latest news and information.
Focus on Parliament.
What we need to do is planning and give us a position before we finalize the budgeting process.
Enjoy sports. The environment. Politics.
The mission we have is socio-economic transformation.
Health, entertainment, updates, and education on the farm. Keep tuned into UBC Radio, inspiring Uganda.
The message I would like to give to you is that let us do our best to have a virus-free young generation.
One Bobby, one with a man in a row. Blow that row, boy.
Chemba saba boy kumbe wakukula mukunyuma chimanye bumbi. Siko bula mukono tasa wakalya dakadanya chiribenda. Basaba chimutwe kumbe wakukula mukunyuma chimanye bumbi nyo. Siko bula mukono tasa wakalya dakadanya chiribenda.
Omukubo komola bufuya bela sedenga bali wabela nakapira kabakukapa. Nayi kamala fuko bakala bekabini taruba. Kuba manyiye mera ya site kweno kwiruno. No gwironi, no gwirano you watenga to yambala katenga musange baganda bange. Yakala temubula bikwera. Okunekida eno dembeli afe. Ale okudeke jingi.
Naye temuloba kutukirenge sawa.
Remember that bill.
Man, takolya kusa.
Oh, what a bun, food that you are going to me. You to what your mama wants when you die so young. You don't know it. make combination. So rise up your pen and don't be a fool. Oh, Chemba Saba Boy, Asikobula mukono tasa makala dada chiribenda basaba chimutwe kumbe watakola kudigitali echamutayi chijukirenga bangi banafe batufune kobe bato chabanze koze sakaleka wali wesa we yokweyisa yeweitanga mbulire tetayona bola banyirira nogamba tuyambadde chimanye tibunya bwe mukomo kwenjiga jerukomo kubanjiga wenanokene nango linga bwe balonga rukomo kuli emitwe jerukomo bamwe emitwe embiri nezikongo kangeko hajenga yabate chemba saba mwe kumbe watukula mu kunyuma chimanye bumbi asiko bulamu mukono tasa makali adakadada chiribenda.
This is Jose Chameleon. Life is so precious. You have to be cautious. If you can't do without it, use a condom.
Yo, what's up? This is Navio from Clear Cut. Make sure that if you have to, you use a condom.
Yeah, you can't be a real man if you don't respect your woman's life. And you can't respect your woman's life when you don't protect it. Use a condom and you'll be safe.
Echamutayi chijukirenga bajibana batufune kobe chembaze koze sakaleka wali wesa we yokweyisa yeweitanga embulirire tetayona bola banyirira nogamba tuyambadde chimanye tibunya bwe mukomo kwenjiga jerukomo kubanjiga wenanokene nango linga bwe balonga jerukomo kuli emitwe jerukomo bamwe emitwe embiri nezikongo kangeko kenkola aba bakazi bola babanyiri kulesa besi bolino kubeera.
Take a walk of literature in the Journey program, a memorable walk of life into creative writing, arts, fiction, and non-fiction every Saturday from 12 to 1 p.m. only on UBC Radio. From Julius Ochwinyo to Susan Chiguri to Jack Mapanje, join us on the journey as we take you into the lives of various writers in the world of literature. The Journey on UBC Radio.